What is up, homies? Welcome to episode 11 of Into the Necrosphere, and making his Into the Necrosphere debut today will be the Jason Mendonca of the mighty Akercocke. As I have proclaimed on this show many times before, Akercocke are the greatest band to ever come out of the United Kingdom, and they are potentially the greatest band on the face of the earth. So if you're a fan, stick around because we cover a bunch of topics on this conversation, including a small but not entirely insignificant update about new Akercocke music. So stay tuned for that one. Before that, however, just a quick reminder that if you have not done so yet, please subscribe, like, comment, share this video. And also, if you are not watching this on YouTube, please subscribe on whatever podcasting service you listen to so that you can experience the inspiration and thrill of a fresh new episode of Into the Necrosphere on your laptop, on your phone, on your tablet, or whatever other device you listen to podcasts on every single Tuesday. Also, stick around after the conversation with Jason Mendonca for what I am cranking this week. And this week I'm going to be talking about some very cool, very grim, very cult, and very necro shit, which seems to be what most of you guys like the most if Instagram is anything to go by. And by the way, if you aren't doing so yet, please do follow the show on Instagram. It is unsurprisingly at Into the Necrosphere. Same thing for Facebook. Tell me what you want to see more of, less of, what you like about the show, and who you'd like to see interviewed. I have got a bunch of very cool guests in the pipeline. Hopefully a few folk that I can announce very, very soon as well. So I'll keep you guys posted. But in the meantime, please welcome to Into the Necrosphere, Jason Mendonca. Jason, welcome to Into the Necrosphere.
Thank you so much for having me.
I think it's again, I much like with Sam, who I've had on recently. You know, when I started thinking about who I could get onto the show, I think the entire band was probably top of the wish list of people that I wanted to get on, and I think in part what gave me the idea to do the show is kind of thinking to a couple of the boozy wind-up nights that we spent listening to music, watching Asian horror movies, and talking about war documentaries. I sort of think, fuck man,
Yes,
if I could record that and turn it into a show, it could be pretty interesting. So
you basically described my perfect evening.
there you go. So
Asian horror films, wine, and war documentaries.
Yeah. So if we kind of start just with what's going on with Akercocke at the moment, Sam mentioned that there is a new album in the works.
Yeah. It's coming along painfully slowly.
Yeah.
Paul and I wrote probably about 9 new songs, and they're all right, but they're just not good enough. So we've kind of scrapped them all.
Oh, really?
They started again. Yeah. So we're cherry picking bits out of them, but we've just pretty much started again, and we've gone right back to the woodshed and just started coming up with stuff collectively. So Paul, David, and myself in the room, just jamming really, and that's proving to be fruitful, but it's taking so long. But yeah, that's where we're at really in terms of creating new stuff. So yes, there is stuff in the pipeline, but it ain't ready yet.
It's a ways off yet. So I wanted to ask you, I mean, when Akercocke came back, I felt almost like, really when sort of news broke, the album was announced, you guys started playing live. If I look at the response that I saw on social media, even the response to some of the posts that I've put on the Instagram or the Into the Necrosphere Instagram, I almost feel like there was a bigger fan base for you guys than necessarily you or anyone in the band realized. How did you feel about the reception when the band decided to kind of I would say not reform, but come back to life again?
Yeah, I mean, it was pretty overwhelming, to tell you honestly, because like you, I don't think we really realised. I mean, maybe David did, because to a greater degree than myself, because he's been actively involved in social media for some time. So I think he knew that there was some sort of appetite. But when we came back and started playing shows and stuff, the welcome we got from people was just phenomenal. So that was really heartwarming. And and I must confess that to being slightly taken aback just to how much of an appetite there was for what we do. So yeah, very positive indeed.
And I mean, the even just the response at the shows, I think it's interesting. The average Akercocke show, and I've been to a great many now, there definitely seems to be quite a distinction between the fans that you guys attract, and I think the average fans that you that you kind of get at any other death or black metal gig. But I definitely feel like the energy levels in the audience, particularly in the last couple of times I saw you, is actually up from what it was. In spite of the fact that, if we're very honest, many of those fans are starting to, like me, show their age.
Yeah, like us. I don't know where we find the energy for it all, but no, I think you're right. There've been some really crazy evenings, and I think because we're playing less now, there seems to be maybe perhaps something more of a sense of occasion around the live shows. So but I've definitely noticed there've been some really frenzied outings of amongst the recent shows. So yeah, and that's always very, very welcome, because it makes it exciting for everyone then,
What's been in terms of places you guys have played at, or countries that you've visited, what's been the response that you've been most surprised by, or kind of most came most from left field, I would say?
I would say Slovenia was astonishing, because we played the graveyard set there. So at Metal Days, which is, I have to say, is one of the most beautiful and best organised festivals I've ever been to, ever had the good fortune to be lucky enough to attend. Couldn't recommend that festival highly enough. So we played the graveyard set, which was after the headliner. So I think we went on stage at like 12:30, 1 o'clock in the morning. I mean, some terrible hour. And quite honestly, I thought, if it was me, I'd probably be in bed by now. But we came out, and there were a couple of thousand maniacs waiting for us to take to the stage. So that was really, really surprising that people had the enthusiasm even after a full day of heavy metal and everything that goes along with it, to come out and see Akercocke at way past midnight. So yeah, that was surprising. And I think as well, we played Maryland Death Fest. I think it was last year, maybe the year before. But since that was, again, I don't think we've ever had sort of much luck in America. So that was really, really astonishing to receive an incredibly warm welcome there. I was really surprised by that.
Well, yeah, so America is one of the countries that comes to mind, I think, where I feel like, based on the people that I know and the things I've read, and just generally every indicator I could rely on for to give me an idea of which way the wind blows. I feel like you guys definitely have more fans in America than maybe you realize. Why is it that you guys never, or you feel like you guys never really necessarily had the luck in the States that I think the band really ought to have had?
I just don't think we worked it. We only ever toured the States once, and it was a disaster. It wasn't
that the Mortician tour?
Yeah, that was with Mortician, and that was way back in 2004, and the whole thing was a disaster. I mean, we played, terrible venues. We got affected by a hurricane. Shows attendances were like, in some places were great, and in other places, it was like 3 people and a dog. And I just don't think we worked it hard enough. I think had we had the opportunity to get on some better tours, then we probably would have reached out to quite a few more people over there. And I know there is an appetite stateside for Akercocke, and we get some lovely correspondence from people over there. But, hell, it's a big place and we're a little band.
Yeah. But, I mean, the Mortician crowd, how did they respond to you guys? Because, obviously, particularly around that time, obviously, it was, blast for Satan stuff for the most part. But still, it's with all due respect to Mortician, it's a lot more sophisticated than the music that they make.
Yeah, it was funny. I think you sort of touched on something earlier when you were saying about the nature of Akercocke fans. People just literally sort of came out of the woodwork, and what was really humbling was people would come up and say hello after shows, and then they'd tell you where they'd come from. And I remember we were in Portland, in Oregon, and like people came from Canada for that show. They drove.
Jesus, yeah.
They drove from Canada, and they went, "Oh yeah, we've driven down from wherever it was." And I was like, "What?" And they went, "Yeah, we've come to see you." I'm like, "Really?" And stuff like that would happen. People would come up and, like I said, just have a chat, and they'd driven for hours. So I think there are some sort of die-hard maniacs out there who have such enthusiasm for the project that they are prepared to uproot themselves and travel some great distances.
Yeah, well, I mean, especially if there's a sense of occasion to it, and obviously, at that point, like you say, you guys weren't necessarily touring much in the States. That was also, if I'm not mistaken, the very infamous, shall we say, you doing a cameo as the vocalist for Mortician, or did that happen in Europe?
That happened in Europe. That was the year after when we did a European tour with Mortician. Yeah. That was, I ended up. Pretending to do the vocals for me.
I was just about to say, you didn't actually have a chance to learn all the lyrics, did you?
No, of course not. I mean, you can't hear them anyway.
No.
But what was astonishing, what I found out, and don't get me wrong, I wouldn't say anything disparaging about Mortician. They're good friends and the lovely guys, and they're a fucking great live band. But when we played in Poland, what was scary were that there were people in the crowd that I watched who clearly knew all the words. Every song. That is hard. That is hardcore.
Well, especially for Mortician. I mean, do they even post lyric sheets? I don't think in any of their CDs I can recall a lyric sheet.
I don't remember, bro, to be honest.
It might have been on Dark Lyrics or something, but I mean, if you sing along to a Mortician song, you basically just go... It sounds like you've got indigestion.
Yeah, Will's voice is like one of the most inhuman sounds ever. I mean, it's bordering on subsonics. Very impressive.
Yeah.
I remember we did a show in somewhere in the deep south, in a strip mall, in this club that was just like something out of a horror film, and there was no one in there, and it was kind of like check floor, red and green lights. Gambling machines along the bar, and one of the support bands was this local group of school kids who were fronted by this little girl who could have been no older than 15, and she was stick thin, this little girl in a vest top and jeans, and she played bass and she fronted her band. And I remember Will and I watching them sound check, and her voice was as deep as his.
Shit. That is nuts.
We just couldn't believe this girl had the most incredible death metal vocal ever, and she was just like this, tiny little child. And this sort of strange subsonic roar came out of her mouth. It was fucking great, man. It was great.
You just talking about Mortician. I kind of always, whenever I think about Mortician, I always think about the kind of movie intros that they have. It reminds me of a story I've been meaning to tell you. So the other day, I made the mistake while I was driving home. I thought my daughter Meadow was asleep, so I switched on Corazon in the car, and obviously you got the Hammer Horror intro that comes up.
Yeah.
For the entire weekend, she kept on asking me. So what did the woman see? What was in the what was in the crystal balls? I was like, well, the man showed her a crystal ball because, and I'm trying to soften the story. The man showed her a crystal ball because there was a face in there that was scary. Why did he show it to her? Why was it scary? Why was she screaming? And then literally randomly 2 days later, how big was the crystal ball?
Oh, that's lovely. That's lovely.
No, it is. I mean, I know where I know. I think when we kind of, I think the last time we hung out, you mentioned your boys were starting to get into hip hop. Has their musical tastes expanded since that time?
It's funny. I just their musical tastes are so eclectic. They have to listen to so much of Dad's bullshit, and some of it clearly goes in one ear and out the other, and then other stuff with them kind of sticks. So like one of them's particularly keen on some Frank Zappa that I play a lot. I play lots of weird hippie music, and my youngest son quite likes some of that. But they always come back to drum and bass and the grime artists that they're into, So, but of course, we listen to so much different music that they're, as I say, they pick up on all sorts. So one day you'll catch them listening to Iron Maiden and Black Sabbath, and the next day it'll be Skepta and I don't know who. So yeah, that's cool. I really support that.
It is. I just find it so fascinating the way that that kids generally, and my experience with Meadow has been the way that she'll a ton of different stuff. I mean, I'll play everything from Deicide in the car, all the way through to classical music. But she'll stop and she'll kind of she'll highlight something that she likes, and then she really gets stuck on it. So one day, just very randomly, I was listening to Susie and the Banshees in the car.
Brilliant.
She's like, "What is that?" And I was like, "What are you talking? What, the song that Daddy just played?" "Yes, the one with the lady singing." So I'm like, "Yeah, it's Susie and the Banshees." Susie and the Banshees. And now, I mean, she absolutely adores it. So she's got this weird taste where she likes loads of 80s goth, like Sisters of Mercy, Susie and the Banshees, Killing Joke, and like she will belt out War Dance, Love Like Blood, all the good stuff. And then she likes ABBA, and she really likes a lot of hardcore. So Gnostic Front, Madball, Terror. I think anything with like a fairly basic 4/4 beat and just loads of aggression and shouting. That she's massively into.
She's going to go far. I think it's really lovely at that age as well, because they're not sort of necessarily stylistically conscious. There's no culture of cool. My kids are, I mean, my oldest son more so now that he's at secondary school, but when they're young enough that they're not involved in like a culture of cool and the fashionable aspects, it's great because you get that honest from the heart. I really like this, regardless of what it is, or I think this is crap. And they're just speaking from the heart. On the subject of agnostic, there's a lovely story. A couple of years ago, the boys went to a school disco and they asked one of the teachers who was in charge of the music if they could play Toxic Shock by Agnostic Front. So the funny part of the story was when I went to collect them, one of the teachers at their school is this American woman. And she said, "Oh, could I have a word with you, Mr. Mendonca?" And I said, "Yeah, of course. Was there a problem?" She went, No. She said, "I just wanted to tell you that your boys came up and asked us to play an Agnostic Front track at the school disco. And I had to explain to them that we don't have any Agnostic Front. And if we did, we didn't think like the other children would really understand it." So I went, all right, that's kind of amusing. And then she turned around and she said to me kind of sheepishly, "I love Agnostic Front. I used to go and see them at CB's." How random is that?
Such a classic track to be requesting as well. Just speaking of Agnostic Front, did you watch that Godfathers of Hardcore documentary?
Yes, I did. I watched it about 2 weeks ago. Really enjoyed it, actually.
Unbelievable. And I'm not ashamed to say at the end or towards the end I did have a very manly and silent tear in my eye, but I just thought it was magnificent. I absolutely loved it.
Yeah. I thought it was great that so many former band members were featured. There were very few people who were kind of, I don't think anyone was glossed over. I just think, maybe like Louis Beto wasn't around when they filmed it, but, Rob Kabula was in there, loads of people from different lineups and all giving their thoughts of their time in the band. And I thought that was great, because it gave much more of a kind of holistic insight into the band's career and their lineage. So I thought it was a great documentary, really nicely made, and great to hear so much from Roger and Vinny, and to see what sort of humble kind of regular dudes they are.
Yeah. Well, it's also, I think seeing that friendship and that closeness that they have, and kind of just just the very notion that something could be wrong with Roger just set Benny off completely. I thought that was really touching.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, true friendship.
So when just kind of circling back to Akercocke, I mean, what originally, and you and I have spoken about this, but I think it's worth kind of just talking about again now, just for the sake of completion in the interview. But what originally, made you decide to take a step back and put the band on hiatus?
I just I think it was a combination of things. I just wasn't very well, to be honest. Yeah, I just wasn't very well at all, and I felt like I was holding the band back, and that I wasn't really able to contribute in the way that I felt was appropriate. So that was that, really. I just there was no kind of watershed moment or anything of that nature, or hence there was no announcement. I just stopped going to band practice.
It's like Office Space. He just decided he's not going to work anymore.
Yeah. I just, my God, we've been doing this for so many years, religiously on the same days every week. And just one day I just went, do you know what? I just don't want to do that now. I don't want to do that anymore. So I don't feel comfortable doing that. I don't feel like I'm bringing anything to the party. So I'm just not going to do that. So I just sort of disappeared and became a bit of a hermit for a while, to be honest.
Yeah. And what was the spark that kind of made you decide that it was time to get back on the wagon?
I don't know. I think being in a much, much better place health-wise was good. I think as well, kind of part of the catalyst, David had been making noises for some time suggesting, look, man, why don't we get together and play? And I was like, I don't know. I'm always about moving forward and never going backwards. And then I just became a complete hypocrite and ate my words, because what actually happened was some friends of mine asked me to play a benefit gig for Coven of Decapitated. And I said, well, really? And they went, yeah, come on, let's just get together and play some covers and, get some money raised for this dude. And I thought, yeah, well, that's a good idea. And that sounds like, not only a worthy endeavor, but also like a bit of fun. So I got together with some mates and we just played some death metal covers down at the Underworld. And it's kind of low key. But do you know what? I fucking really enjoyed it. And it kind of made me remember that, actually I really like playing the guitar. And I really like, the whole thing, the whole shooting match. So that very much put me in a headspace where I thought, you know what, maybe I should get back together with Dave and find some people to play with again. So yeah, that's pretty much how it came about.
And I guess, in that process, when did you know, look, this is going to be something that I can start focusing on again long term? I can see an album coming out of this, and I can see us actually genuinely kind of breathing life into this beast called Akercocke.
I don't really remember any particular one time, Jackie. I just remember meeting up with Paul again was really, really significant. I went to a party at a mutual friend's house. I hadn't spoken to him for 10 years. And within, not very long of becoming reacquainted, we were sort of back into old bad habits and drinking too much and having a real laugh. And I said to him, do you fancy maybe picking up the guitar and coming? And he went, yeah, fine, fuck it, we'll just do that. So that was easy. David was up for it. And I had written about 3 or 4 songs in 2007, when just after Antichrist. And I never did anything with them. I kind of demoed them on my own. I really just sort of, made sketches of them. I forgot all about them. But I seem to remember there was something kind of all right about them. Paul had a host of material stashed away. And it was collectively from getting these songs knocked into shape that they're the songs that became their last album. So I just said to the guys, look, I don't know where we're going to start from, so why don't we start with this shit that I've got, and at least it'll give us a foothold and remember what the dynamic is of playing together in a room. And I hadn't really played the guitar much, so I had to kind of like remember how to do that. And they kind of found themselves to become Unbound by Sin is one of them. What the other songs called? I don't even know what songs are called, mate. Inner Sanctum was one of them, and One Chap ends for Another to Begin. Those were written in 2007. And then Disappear, First to Leave the Funeral, Familiar Ghosts, that was all stuff that Paul brought to the table. And the funny thing about it was, even though those things were created in disparate contexts and during distant times, when we teed them all up together, it did actually sort of sound like an album. It had some sort of continuity to it.
Yeah.
So, but that was very much more by luck than by design.
Yeah, I mean, and also, I don't know whether this was intentional or whether it's me reading too much into it, but one of the things that I always picked out, well, in fact, I picked out on the album almost immediately when I listened to it the first time, is how much more personal everything felt on there. I felt like the lyrics especially, obviously, is a big step away from some of the stuff you guys have done before. It's a lot more personal. Did you feel like there was kind of this was a way to close a chapter maybe on a part of your life that was a bit more difficult or a bit more challenging?
I think for me it was I never really thought about it until you asked, but maybe it was in some sense a compromise, because, as I said to you before, I've always been about, or I'd like to massage my ego enough to think that I've always been about progress and not about revisiting stuff.
Yeah.
So it was kind of like a compromise. I knew that if we put the band back together, I didn't want it to be to be what it had been before. It would have been very, very easy to have come out and written another all guns blazing death metal kind of satanic slab of blast beats. But why would you do that? Why would we do that? It would be pointless. It'd be futile. There's other people who do that and they do it much better than us. And we've done that already. So it's like, well, fuck that. Let's try and do something a bit different. And I think the difference in the lyrical approach mirrored the kind of progression in if you will, in some of the musical aspects of that record. So it was fitting that we chose new material for kind of like a new Akercocke, or an Akercocke version 2, if you like.
Yeah. And how is that way of thinking informing any of the new stuff you guys have worked on? I mean, is it would you see the new stuff as being another move in a different direction? I know you obviously you've scrapped a bunch of the ideas you guys have thus far, but what's your sense of the direction the band would be taking?
Well, to be brutally honest, it's actually very, very difficult, because I don't want things to sound like a contrivance. We've always sort of tried to approach things with varying degrees of success, based on excitement. So there's something very visceral about heavy metal, and it's such that when you hit upon something that you feel is good, that you feel is exciting, well, that's something to capitalize upon. So if you put that into a songwriting context, the way we've always approached what we do is if it excites us, then that's good enough, and it doesn't matter about the shape or the dynamic or the contrast. It just matters that it's exciting to us to play it, and we feel something when we play it. So it's actually getting increasingly difficult to find what we refer to inside the rehearsal room, those money shot moments. So as I say, Renaissance, I think, has some exciting parts in it, and I think has got quite a nice flow. We're definitely not out to repeat ourselves again, and so that's why, in a way, we've come back to in almost full circle, in as much as the recent sessions that I've spent with David and Paul in the past few weeks have all been about working together collaboratively, which is how we started when the band first began in 96, 97, whenever it was. That's how the songs were formulated, was, some blokes in a room together making a racket and going, oh, that sounds good, or that's made everybody fall about on the floor laughing, so that's in. And so we're sort of back into that territory, because I think, it becomes increasingly difficult to capture that collective spark. And when you write in isolation, something that I think, I think that sounds great, and then you listen to it in the cold light of day and you go, actually, do you know what? It's not that great, So yeah, I don't think that whatever comes next will. Hopefully it will be discernible as Akercocke music, but I have no real idea, what it will sound like stylistically. It'll just be whatever whatever makes us chuckle.
One of the things I was thinking as you were talking now is, again, seeing you guys live the last couple of times, there's a real excitement and almost sort of and I can see it in you. I can definitely tell in the rest of the band it's there as well. There's kind of I guess an almost youthfulness or youthful energy about playing songs like Son of Morning or Enraptured by Evil. Is there also not maybe a sense of, when you say coming full circle, replaying or, revisiting a lot of those old songs that you probably hadn't played for years before the band got together? I guess getting that feeling back and that sort of spark influences the way that you write going forward.
Well,
I don't know. I think that's I'm probably being very clunky in the way I phrase that, but I think you know what I mean.
That's fine. I'd have to break that down into two questions, and the latter part about how it would affect writing moving forward, I'm not sure I have an answer to. But coming back to those old songs, particularly the more overtly satanic material, I was reticent. I make no bones in saying I was quite reticent, and I said, look, we obviously the fans are going to want to hear the old material, so we've got to pick and choose, but let's be selective. Let's leave out some of the really ugly, disturbing stuff. And then, do you know what? The more when did we get back together? 2016, I think it was. The more we go out and play, and the more we spend time together, the more that kind of sort of Monty Python childish joke that initially made us laugh around songs like Menstrual Blood and Semen and Enraptured by Evil, I ended up being the one who said, fuck it, let's get those songs back in the set, because they're funny. They are fucking funny. When we wrote Menstrual Blood and Semen, right, we were idiots, right, maniacs on a mission to make what we termed, because we're not trained musicians, we don't have the parlance of the Royal Society, the alumni of the Royal Society of Music, but what we tried to create what we thought was anti-music. So we were trying to be as atonal, as jagged, and as ugly as possible, because it made us laugh. because it was a challenge, you know, and it was like, how can we make this more disturbing to the ear? How can we make this more unlistenable? And that's where that song comes from. So after, you know, being a bit of a ponce and going, well, you know, I don't really want to visit that because I'm not sure about the message that it gives off to people, and whether, I said, fuck it, you know, fuck all that. It's funny. Let's play it, because and you know, we intentionally went out in the past couple of shows we've played, which have been very few and far between, I hasten to add, and played the most brutal sets that we could, and because it was funny, you know.
So I know what you mean, because it's
that youthful original spark.
Yeah,
you know,
yeah.
When you're playing, you know, mindless death metal fused with harrowing black metal with a load of electronic rancor going on, that's, for me, that's funny, you know, and that's exciting. So there's an element
of release to it, and I think particularly in this day and age, I think that release is extremely important.
Very much so. I mean, personally, you know, performing those songs the first time round was all about catharsis for me. Conveniently, that I was facilitated by this ridiculous thing I do with my best friends, you know. But second time around, it's just, man, it's almost like, because we're all knocking on a bit, it's almost like a physical challenge, you know. Fucking hell, can we play for an hour and 10 minutes at like 250 beats per minute? I find it difficult to stand up that long, let alone like, you know, speed pick, you know, speed pick, and then, you know, make dog noises into a microphone. I mean, at the end of it, I'm physically fucking spent. I'm not 22 anymore. I'm 48. You know.
Well, I was going to ask you your vocals. So I remember, and I always take these videos with a grain of salt, because even if they're professionally recorded, I mean, like the Bloodstock video, there's always some nuance in the voice that gets fucked up when that gets recorded. But it did sound a little bit like your voice was straining. And I remember you saying to me that actually, you know, being able to get your vocals that low again, you found really, really hard. How you know, how was that? Talk about that experience.
What, Bloodstock, or just trying to get the vocals?
No, just your vocals as you kind of
It's like anything. It's fucking weird. It's just practice. It's just practice. The more I do it, you know, I mean, if you listen to my natural speaking voice, you know, my actual natural pitch, my natural register is actually quite high. You know, I have quite a high tonal speaking voice. I don't have a deep voice at all.
Yeah.
You know, but when I think the more you do death metal vocals, something stretches maybe. I don't know what. I don't know anything about the physiology of it. But what I do know is the more I do it, the easier it becomes. So what I tend to do now before shows is when we're rehearsing, right up until like 2 weeks before the show, I don't do any vocals. I just focus on playing the guitar, trying to play with the band. And then the last 2 weeks I do vocals intensively, and that's just to kind of push it down. And you can tell when I've been doing a lot of vocals, because I speak like that. Hello, Jackie. Yeah. I'm like, on the telephone, it gets ridiculous. So I think it's just practice. What was really a challenge, again, was black metal vocals, like the real sort of high kind of Count Grishnak-esque, you know, wails. I think with age, that getting up that high becomes harder. But you know, we're kind of, it's kind of cool, because we don't really play very much. So now I can, if there's nothing either side of a show, I can just go berserk. And if I fuck my voice for one night and can't speak the next day, it doesn't matter. You know, it's very much a different ball game if you're performing night after night after night after night. Then you have to find strategies, right, and coping mechanisms to be able to get through, to be able to deliver the goods every night. And that's a very difficult game. But you know, if you're just doing a festival here and a festival there and a show here and a gig there, man, it's great. I just go mental now. Just let it all go.
And you can see that. I mean, all the shows I've seen, there's so much energy on stage, and I think I feel like the band is almost more confident now. And you guys, I mean, you've never, and I say this to your credit, I think I mentioned this to you before. Everyone I've ever spoken to, I've always said this, like the coolest thing a frontman has ever done on stage was when you walked out to this was like 2003, I think, right when Corazon, came out and it was getting a lot of attention. You came out and you yelled out to the audience after the first song, "We hear you, London, and when we hear you, he hears you."
How fucking ridiculous! How funny,
dude! It was brilliant. But again, I feel like there's even more confidence now when I see you guys on stage.
Yeah, I think so. I think a lot of that is, just if you've been doing something for a very, very long time. I guess there's two ways like a band can go, right? Like if you're working a lot, if you're like a young band, like, and you don't have day jobs, and you're out and you're touring after back to back tours, work. One of two things is going to happen. You're either going to become successful at being able to do that with that frequency, or you're going to implode. Simple as that, right? So, but with us, we've never really been that busy. So I think to sort of build up the kind of confidence and dare I say it without sounding like a total tosser, stagecraft and the experience just took a whole fucking lot longer, And it's like anything, playing a show. It's like falling, the cliche of, it's like riding a bike. But if you haven't ridden a bike for 10 years, you're a bit wobbly when you get on first. You have to, get in the groove. But fuck it, I just love doing it, man. I love playing live.
Now, just on the topic of stagecraft, because I know you and I see eye to eye on a lot of things when it comes to how bands should present themselves and the way a set should flow.
Yeah.
Becoming the adversary.
Yes.
Why has that not been on any set lists that I've seen? That should be like your, like like Slayer always ends off a show with Angel of Death. That's like the perfect song for you guys to end off with. It's even got like a hardcore breakdown at the, but essentially like a hardcore breakdown.
Fucking right.
It's so fucking awesome. Like I can see my mind, you singing the face in this crying glass gazing, and then the whole crowd goes nuts.
So I tell you what, Jackie, our next gig I think is on New Year's Eve in London. We're playing some do in London. Yeah,
no, I saw. I'm very tempted to come out for that, as much as I detest New Year's. But
I fucking detest New Year's, which is why I agreed to do a show on it.
Yeah.
Because it'll divert me from all the usual drudgery. But I'm going to insist that at that show we play Becoming the Adversary.
Like I said, perfect song to finish off a show with.
On a light note.
Oh, I've lost you. Oh, and you're back.
Yeah, back again.
There you go.
I have no idea what happened there.
Nah, don't worry.
On a lighter note, you were saying about like some of that kind of overblown kind of stage banter. There was a UK tour we did once, and we played a venue in Oxford, which I think is now the O2, but I think back then it was called something like the Galaxy. I can't remember. Anyway, I was really ill. Me and one of our techs had got like the worst bug ever. So I took to the stage and I was completely delirious. And I didn't know if I was going to shit myself, pass out, or pass out and shit myself, right? So there were quite a few in, right? But they were all wearing duffel coats. They were all like Oxford students. And I remember, for some reason not even known to myself, I said, "Do you feel enraptured by evil?" And there was absolute stony silence. And then this one voice just went, "No." Oh, it's beautiful. It's beautiful. The really weird thing about that show was, despite it being so awkward and slightly shortened because I didn't want to shit myself or pass out.
Yeah.
Those duffel-coated maniacs bought nearly all the merch that night. We had the most incredible night of merch sales.
But I mean, I was about to say they must have initially, if they didn't know who you were, they must not have known what to make of you, because this was still in the days of the smart stage get up.
Yeah. I was back. This is way back when.
Yeah.
This is way back when. That was funny as fuck.
What was the original idea behind the suits, behind kind of presenting yourself so differently?
I think, with my terrible memory, I think that was it. I think you've hit the nail on the head. It was just a desire to present ourselves differently. David particularly is, he's a visual artist, isn't he? He's a cartoonist and he draws prolifically, and he's very much into film and cinematography and the visual arts. And I think it probably came from him. I think all these bands that we'd grown up with, in the 80s, they all looked the same, right? It was like, spray-on jeans, high-top trainers, and your mate's band shirt. And that's
a Suicidal Tendencies cap. At least one member in the band wore a Suicidal Tendencies cap.
Yeah. Right. Forwards or backwards.
Yes.
So I think, the idea was, let's not do that. Let's just do something different. How we arrived at the suits, I've got no fucking idea. It was a long time ago. But I tell you what, when we came back, I said, I'm not doing the fucking suits anymore. That's bollocks. We've been there and done that. Let's now just wear spray-on jeans and mates bands t-shirts and be heavy metal kids like we always wanted to be, really. So, and I tell you what, it's a lot easier.
I was about to say, I can imagine. Although I know for a fact there is a clamor to see you guys back in the shirts.
Oh man, I don't know. And after we did it, like loads of other big bands did it, like big bands did it,
Yeah.
I don't know what they sound like, but they would be on the cover of magazines, like wearing suits, and we're like, with neck tattoos and shit. You're like, okay, yeah.
Yeah, but that's like they those are people that can't dress, because they'll wear the suits, but it'll be like they've put on their dad's suit trousers. They could probably fit both their legs into one. It just looks fucking ridiculous. But yeah, I will say, I mean, because you guys are one of the bands that I discovered through seeing you live, which I think in some ways is cooler than actually hearing a band, especially when you see a band the first time. The first time I saw you guys, I didn't really. I kind of didn't know what to make of you, because you came, I think I was 22 when I saw you the first time. You guys came out with the suits and stuff on. I was like, what the fuck is this?
Yeah.
And then as I explained to Sam, it's a bit like when he and I both had exactly the same reaction to The Exorcist. It's like, you see it the first time, you're like, yeah, that's all right, but you kind of keep wanting to see it again. So every time you guys played, I would see you again. It's like, man, this is really fucking cool. Then it just starts growing on you, and then eventually you sort of embrace that look and that vibe to such a degree where everything else is now inferior. And that's always how I felt about the suits. But I definitely feel like that also in some ways dictated your fan base. Now, and I'll say why I say that. Just the general manners and the kind of common decency of the crowd at an Akercocke show versus anywhere else is noticeably different. And my girlfriend, who's not into metal whatsoever, went with me to see you guys, and even she remarked about that. She's like, "There's no one pushing me, no one pushing me around. No one's rude. No one's spilling drinks all over the place."
Yeah.
It's a bizarre. Anyway, I was just
they're a good bunch generally, aren't they? They're a nice bunch. They they have to be slightly broad-minded and slightly weird to be into it, really.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I've said,
Lord knows we are.
The way I would describe Akercocke's sound to anybody that doesn't know, it's like, imagine if, and this is especially true of the earlier stuff. Imagine if, in the Nightside Eclipse was being recorded, they invited Frank Mullen over to do vocals, and they listened to an unbelievable amount of Killing Joke. That's what would have come out.
Jackie, you're far too kind. You're far too kind. I tell you what, though, on the subject of watching The Exorcist, to this day, I probably watch it about once a month.
Yeah.
It's probably the film that I have seen more times than any other film, and it's almost like a comfort blanket for me. If if I get home of an evening and I just want to just unwind and I just watch it, and I never ever tire of it at all. I love everything about it. Yeah, it's just such a remarkable piece of work. Max von Sydow was about 40 when he played Merrin. I mean, look at that. Look at Lester Merrin, right? And then think about Max von Sydow being 40. That's brilliant.
Max von Sydow in The Exorcist looks just as old as he looked 25 odd years later in Needful Things. So he looks like an old man in The Exorcist, and he looks just as old in Needful Things. It's like, dude, did this guy just hit 70 and just not age beyond that?
Yeah. Incredible. And I shan't rant and rave about The Exorcist, but I shit you not. Like, talk to people that know me really, really well, and they'll tell you that quite frequently.
Mate, I can
watching it.
I can talk about The Exorcist forever. I actually just recorded a countdown of my top 10 horror movies with Jeremy Wagner, and it will have aired by the time I published this episode. But I mean, we went long on The Exorcist. For me, it's just it's the most flawless horror movie ever made. But it's much more than just a horror movie, because especially when you see the director's cut, there's kind of as much as a lot of people don't necessarily see it, there is kind of a softness to it as well, because you've got kind of this mother's love for her daughter. You have the relationship between Damien and Merrin, and you kind of have Merrin, I think, seeing the spiritual distress that Damien is in, taking pity on him and trying to kind of shepherd him through this very difficult situation. It's a fucking unbelievable film, absolutely unbelievable.
Yeah. It touches upon so many subjects, but the thing is it's also all the different subplots are so beautifully interwoven. The questioning of faith, the loss of a loved one, the helplessness surrounding the demise of Damien Karras' mother, Lester Merrin, like that alluding to the fact that he has some sort of drug problem. The scene where he's taking the pills in Iraq. It's phenomenal. And the dream sequences are just pure gold, with the almost subliminal flashes in them. I adore that film.
Did you see The Exorcist 3?
Yes, I have. Yes, I have it. Better than 2, which is an abomination.
Yeah, no, 2 is complete shit. But
it held my attention. I didn't think it was the greatest film in the world, and was certainly not a patch. I mean, how could you get close to the first one? But yeah, that's all right.
No, I'm a very, very big fan of 3 as well, and it's one of those movies that the more I watched it, the more it grew on me. But absolutely loved it. And another movie I can highly recommend, if you, just in case you haven't seen it, Hereditary.
Do you know what? I just didn't buy it. I enjoyed it. Yeah, I enjoyed it. I just didn't buy it. I think for me, the 3 best films I have seen in recent years, one would be A Dark Song. Have you seen that?
No.
Look up A Dark Song. That's a beautiful film.
Yeah, no, I will do.
And staggeringly tense. There are only 2 people in it. I mean, maybe 3, but for the most part of the film, there are just two characters. That's a lovely film. Very, very unique. Possum. Have you seen Possum?
No.
So check out Possum. That is stars the incredible Sean Harris, who I think is one of the most powerful actors of his generation. And that is a truly harrowing, again, very, very tense film, because there's no one in it. So to have a film that doesn't have a huge cast, that only has 2 or 3 people in it, that holds my attention start to finish. Yeah, absolutely incredible. And the other film that I really, really enjoyed in recent years was The Witch.
Yeah, excellent movie.
Yeah, I just think it's beautifully filmed, incredibly slow, but yeah, beautifully filmed. And are you still there?
Yeah, I'm still here.
I've lost you somewhere. There you are. And the way it ends just made me almost have a funny moment in my trousers.
Hey, I still haven't. Have I turned you on to the Asian horror stuff yet, or is that something we're going to need to re-explore at some point?
I mean, we should re-explore. I've been watching. I've seen a. Did we watch Headshot together?
Yes.
Oh my god! Yeah, the guy who plays the hero in that film has cropped up in a couple of films recently that I want to check out. I can't remember his name.
Well, so the sequel to Headshot, I think, is on Netflix. And
Really?
the movie that those two guys made previously, the two brothers that directed Headshot, the movie is called Killers. That's something I cannot recommend to you more highly.
Oh,
it's the same insanity in terms of like violence level as Headshot. It's a much more solid story, but fucking hell, I've said this on the horror countdown that I did as well. The Asian sensibility or the Asian violence aesthetic is very, very different to Hollywood, very different to anything
yes.
in the West. They have a very they think nothing of showing you in excruciating detail a man smashing a woman's face with a hammer from her point of view inside of a plastic bag.
So it's like, if you think about the John Woo films of the 90s, the Killer, Hard Boiled, of course, and then imagine like him being plied with crystal meth. Yeah, it's that level of insanity. It's just barking.
The thing that they always get right though is there always seems to be a reason why it's there. It's never. I've yet to see an Asian movie that's that is well reviewed and well thought of in kind of the horror, particularly the horror genre, where I felt like the violence was unnecessary.
What about Old Boy?
But
what about Old Boy?
I thought it was absolutely phenomenal.
I mean, you see, this is the thing. It's like I think amongst enthusiasts, it was picked up upon. I think that film's a masterpiece. Of course, it was then taken and bastardized by Hollywood, or I don't know.
Spike Lee did it, which disgrace.
Did he? I wouldn't even look at it. I'm not interested.
No.
I probably have almost as much disdain for that notionally as I do for that dreadful man, Nicolas Cage, being in The Wicker Man.
Yeah.
I wouldn't. I know that if I put that film on, it's going to upset me, and it'll be 2 hours of my life I'll never get back.
Mm. Well, I just looked it up now. So Oka Antara is the guy that you were talking about who's in Headshot. He's in. I think he's also. Okay. I might be wrong on this. He's also in The Raid.
Yes, he is. I think you're right.
Yeah, both Raid movies, which both are fucking fantastic.
I saw the sequel on Netflix today. I didn't watch it, but I saw it exists. I didn't know it existed, so something to look forward to there.
Genius, mate. I'm gonna let you go shortly. I wanted to ask you one quick thing, and kind of more giving you a platform just to talk about it, and I can post something about it in the description of the video. But heavy metal truants. So you've done that 2-3 years running?
No, not running. I've done it 3 times.
Yeah.
So
just for anybody who doesn't know, just talk a bit about what that is.
So the Heavy Metal Truants is a group of nutcases who every year they ride from Alexandra Palace in North London to the Download Festival, and and it's to raise money for 3 children's charities. There's Teenage Cancer Trust, Nordhoff Robbins Music Therapy, and Childline, 3 tremendously worthy children's charities. And The object of the group is to raise £666,000, and which is risible and great. I love that, Dennis. So it's a group of people who are just like-minded. Some of them are music industry people, some of them are journos, some of them are fans, some of them are band members. But what it really boils down to is 50, 55 cyclists riding through all conditions. I think it's about 185 miles, listening to heavy metal non-stop. So it's a phenomenal endeavour and hugely enjoyable, and for immensely worthy causes.
Are you going to do it again next year?
I have to see, because I did this year. I have to see with my schedule if I can fit it in, but I would hope to. I want to do it as many times as I can, because, apart from the fact that we've now crossed over the $500,000 mark in terms of fundraising, I'd want to continue to bring as much to that as I can personally. But apart from anything else, it's a fucking great laugh. Don't think that we cycle 85 miles in a day and then don't have a couple of beers at the end of it, because oh my god, we do. So,
no, I can imagine. I've seen who actually goes on tour with you, mate, and I know the drinking capacity of those gentlemen. So, dude, thank you so much for coming on the show. Great to talk to you again as well. We absolutely need to catch up over a couple of beers, over some steaks, and some Asian horror at some point very soon. I was gonna. The plan originally actually was for us to move down your way in October. So my girlfriend lives in Hungerford, but our plan was kind of to move towards Bracknell. Bracknell, maybe Newbury. We've delayed that by a year, but probably by next year this time, I'll be not too far up the road from you.
Well, I'll still be here, bro, and I look forward to that. We'll talk offline about beer, brisket, and Asian horror. And thank you so much for having me on your show.
Awesome, dude. Pleasure. Thank you very much. Take care of yourself.
Thank you, Mr. Smith. Take care. Bye-bye.
Yes, sir.
Bear witness to my testimony. The things that I have done, unforgivable. The prayers of 100 priests could not save my soul, like the sun of the morning, boasting a multitude of sins.
Thank you so much once again to Jason Mendonca for coming on the show. I had an absolutely awesome time talking to him, and I hope you guys really enjoyed that. And hopefully he will come on again at some point in the not too distant future. Hopefully around the time when Akercocke release some new music. Now, on to what I am cranking this week, and I did promise you some underground cult necro shit. The first band I'm going to feature today is so necro that they don't have any social media presence that I can find. So the band is called Cavusum. They are from Portland, Oregon, and if you've been following the news, you will see that the Center City in Portland, Oregon, seems to be awash with menacing figures who live on a staple diet of soy products and left-wing rage. So I can understand why folks of sane mind might be pissed off enough to release or create the kind of music that Cavusum have put together. Of course, that theory could all fall apart if Cavusum are part of the gang yelling at old people in the streets of Portland. But anyway, it doesn't really matter. This is an EP they've put out independently. It is available on Bandcamp, and I will post the link to it in the description of this video. It is prime United States black metal, really aggressive, well performed. Only 2 guys in the band, at least as far as Bandcamp suggests. And the songs are relatively lengthy, but kind of the, I would say definitely of the third / fourth wave black metal variety. So aggressive, well produced, well played, and kind of flitting between discordance, groove, atmosphere, melody. Just well worth your time. This is the first track off of that EP. This is a song called Scars. That was Scars by Cavusum off of their new EP, and I will post a link to their Bandcamp in the description of this video. Now, from one enigmatic black metal band to another, this is a one-man project out of Canada called Sanctvs. They have just released a record called Mors Eterna on Sepulchral Productions, and probably the best way to describe what Sanctvs does, it's kind of like Burzum on PCP, but it starts off with some really sinister, really cool chanting. If you're cynical, you might think that that this band is kind of trying to steal some of that Batushka speed, but they don't, because as soon as that chanting is done, all hell breaks loose, and it is just kind of breakneck insanity from there on out. I think this is absolutely fantastic. It falls into that same category as Abduction, where it's you kind of listen to it and you go, how the fuck did that come from the mind of one man? But I am going to play one track off of it now. Once again, a disclaimer. It seems like all of the lyrics are in French and all of the song titles are in French. I think my French is probably worse than my Norwegian. So as I butcher the next song title, my apologies in advance. This is Roy Omnipotent, Santiente Malefique. Enjoy. Sanctvs off of a fantastic debut called Mors Eterna, available on Sepulchral Productions. I don't really know Sepulchral Productions all that well, so I'm definitely going to check out some of the other bands on that label. I mean, certainly if this is anything to go by, it's well worth doing. But anyway, from a one-man French black metal bulldozer to a fine group of French lads from Bordeaux, France, the next band to be featured on the illustrious list of bands on this week's edition of What I Am Cranking this week is the Great Old Ones. They have just released their fourth record entitled Cosmicism. They are known as a Lovecraftian black metal band. The new record is not quite as thematic as A Tale of Dark Legacy was that came out in 2017. But if you like that album, you are going to enjoy this one, because I think really the kind of dense, blasting atmospheric black metal that they did on the previous record. I feel like they've just gone back and refined that, made it a little bit more progressive, a little bit more epic, and just really kind of fine-tuned their formula. Now, I think, one could very easily get into a place here with this band where they start to repeat themselves, but I don't think we're there yet. I think Cosmicism is very, very enjoyable. It's a record that I will honestly say I feel like I do need to spend a bit more time with. But that seems to be an ongoing theme with French releases this year, because I felt the same about the last Blut aus Nord. And really, much as I predicted at the time, the more I'm listening to that, the more I'm enjoying it. And again, as I said, I really enjoy this one too. So this is a track off of the new album by the Great Old Ones. The album is called Cosmicism, as I said. It is available on Season of Mist Records, and the song is called Of Dementia. That was the Great Old Ones with Of Dementia off of their cool new album, Cosmicism. And like I said, if you like their previous stuff, you are really going to enjoy this. So do check it out. That is it. One more episode in the can. Thank you so much for tuning in. Thank you so much to Jason from Akercocke for being on the show. I really hope you guys enjoyed it. I will be back again next week with James Benson of Not, Chrome Waves, Amiensis, and he's probably joined about 6 or 7 other bands since I've recorded this outro. So who knows what he will have to tell us. Hope you guys have a fucking kick-ass week from the mean streets of London or from the mean streets of Surbiton on the outskirts of London. Have yourselves a good one, and I will see you all again soon.